Hi, I thought I would start with a live video in here because when I record videos on my phone, it doesn't let me post them. So I am going to do a Loopy icord bobble bind off on this swatch I just did so that you can see how I did the bind off on my bright pink shawl. So here's the start. I did show you guys a video of it the other day, but I had already started the bind off. So I'm starting at the very beginning, and here is how I did my shawl. So I start with knitting one stitch, and you'll see why here in a second. So I'm going to knit one, and then I'm going to work a bobble. So I'm going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to knit it. I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to then split my stitches and create some yarn overs. And we're going to do 3 of those. So there's 1, 2, and then we'll do 1 more, and that will make 7 stitches. I'm working a 7-stitch bobble here. So, okay, I've got my 7 stitches, and then now we're going to work a bobble the way that I like to do them. I saw a lot of videos. This is what I think looks the best. So every other stitch, we're going to purl through the back loop because the yarn overs that we added give it a twisted stitch look. So this helps get it back to better aesthetics. So we're going to purl one. We're going to purl one through the back loop. Purl one through the back loop, purl one through the back loop, and then purl one, and then we're going to turn our work again. I keep this very vertical so I don't stretch this little stitch here. Hi, Marky. I don't have your GoPro here, so here we go. Okay, so now we're just going to simply knit across the 7 stitches. Oops, I have my super sharp Hiya sharps, and sometimes they like to split my yarn. Okay, so 1 more stitch here, and then we're going to turn our work and simply purl. My needles are kind of loud on the paper, sorry. Okay, so 1 more stitch here, and now we're going to turn our work 1 more time. Keeping that nice and straight, doesn't stretch that stitch once again. And then we're going to knit across 1 more time, and then we're going to bind off all these stitches. And you'll see the cute little bobble. Okay, so now we're at the end of the 7 stitches again. Now we're going to bind these off. So I like to pull down on my fabric that I've knitted there to get my stitch in better. So now we're just going to slide all those stitches, all those stitches over until we're down to that very first one that we knitted. And I can't see my screen right now, so if you guys are commenting, I apologize. I'll answer you guys after I'm done here. Okay, so we've got our perfect little bobble, and I like to do that when I get it done and give it some form. Now, this is what I like to do, and we end up binding off 2 stitches for every bobble because of this. So I take that first stitch, slide it over our bobble stitch. Now I'm going to knit 1 more and slide our bobble stitch over that knitted stitch. This becomes my first stitch for my first icord loop. So I've got 1, and then we need 3 for that. So 2, 3. And then I prefer to actually use a DPN for this part. It's just easier. Okay, so now we're going to leave that needle in the back there, and we're going to work 10 rows of an I-cord. So bear with me. Those needles are loud. Okay, so I wish I could fast forward, but I can't. I may just show you, wow, you guys, I needed 2 DPNs. Hello. Let me grab one more. Okay. So we've got 1 row going. Woohoo. I enjoy this bind off. I think it's fun. For me, it's all knitting. So as long as I'm knitting, I'm happy. And it's a nice change of pace when you get to do the loops. And they go super fast. You just do 10 rows, and then we'll connect it to the next 3 stitches that helps bind 3 off, and then keep going with our loops. And I've said it before, you could just do bobble, loop, bobble, or you could do a bobble in 5 loops like I did, or you can do a bobble in 3 loops, whatever. I tend to go for odd numbers, so. Getting there. This is probably super boring, but I promised a video on how to do this, so here it is. If I could just go live on Ravelry, wouldn't that be awesome? We're almost there, and then I can show you how to attach, which really this is all you need to see is the start and then how to do the loops, and then you want to try to time it with a bobble at the end, so when you get to the last 2 stitches, you'll do one of these bobbles again, and then slip the bobble stitch over the last stitch, cut the yarn, and weave your end through the last stitch. Okay, where are we at? I'm getting carried away here. Hold on. Oh, imagine that. Exactly 10. I've done a few of these. Don't you know? Okay, so, oh, I didn't tell you what I was doing. Okay, so after 10 rows here, then I am left-handed, and Marky and I decided that a right-handed person would most likely turn counterclockwise because you work from right to left. So I am going to turn it clockwise because I'm left-handed, okay? So here's the important part. Once you turn it like that, you've got your strand down here. You want to take your next 3 stitches from all your other stitches, and we're going to do like a triple needle bind off, but we're not going to bind the stitches off because we want these 3 right here to be the next I-cord loop. So we're just going to knit these together. So this is like a triple needle bind off. So I'm going to knit those 2, one from each needle there. There's that one. We're going to do that 3 times. One more. And then now we have our next 3 stitches for our next loop. I mean, look how perfect, you guys. It's so cute. It's just so cute. Isn't that cute? I think it is. I am a lefty, Deb. I'm looking at the screen for a second. Yes, I'm 100% left-handed. So there you go. I'm going to keep going, I think. I'll just do 3 loops in between the bobbles so that you can kind of see the whole section done. Yeah, you just have to get past what direction I'm knitting because I am left-handed. So I'm sure it's like watching water boil or paint dry, but when you're doing it, they go really fast, and I find it pretty relaxing. I like doing this. I also, but don't like the sound of my needles on the paper. Oh, I'm losing you. This is done with a selfie, you guys. Bear with me. Selfie stick. Okay, so if you can hang in there, I'm going to do 2 more loops here and then a final bobble so that you can see it done, especially for those of you that got the pattern. I do have an icord bind off video in our group already, so I'm guessing if you search my name, if you search my name and icord bind off, you should find, I did it on my Burke shawl, and I think I've done it on some other things. So anyway, if you just chimed in, I'm gonna do a total of 3 loops in between 2 bobbles so that you guys can kind of see how I did the bind off on my shawl. It's also not very exciting, but at least you know. So all the loops have 10 rows, which is, 30 stitches a loop. I'm sure some are gasping. It just doesn't matter to me. It's whatever looks the best. So I found it fun. Okay, so we're getting close to starting the final loop here. And then I'll do a final bobble. Keep in mind, you will have a different amount of stitches. And I don't have, I can do a specific formula for any amount of stitches. But the great thing about the shawl I just published is that you can make it any size you want. So what's cool about this bind off also is if when I get towards the end, maybe the last 10 to 15 stitches, I'll count how many stitches I have, and I'll kind of count off, how many more loops are going to take how many more stitches and bobbles, etc. On my red Burke shawl, I had to fudge a little bit, and I knitted a stitch in between the final loop and the bobble just because of symmetry reasons, and you can't tell. So that's a great thing about this bind off, is that you can fudge it. You don't have to have the perfect amount of stitches or whatever. If you have a lot of stitches, I recommend probably doing 3 loops in between, because if you don't know how many stitches it's going to take you to bind off with this, it's easier to fudge if there's just 3 loops. So let me see here. Oh, I went a little crazy. This one's got 11. We're going with it, okay? So here's my second one. I'm going to turn it clockwise because I'm left-handed. So if you're right-handed, you're going to turn it counterclockwise, and you want it to go behind your main stitches here so that the join of these 3 stitches are in the back. Okay, so once again, like a triple needle bind off, we're going to knit these stitches together, one from each needle, like this. Okay, so now this is the final loop. The final loop here that I'm going to show you. So look, you guys. Isn't that so pretty? I love it. Well, Maggie, I'm live right now, honey, so you didn't miss a thing. See? So pretty. You guys, this is so pretty. This is DK, and I've been working with fingering and sport so much lately. This yarn feels like it's worsted or bulky. Okay, so if you want to bear with me, I'm going to whip out one more I-cord loop real quick and then show you a final bobble. And I think what I'll do, even though I have 40 stitches here, I don't want to make you look at all of this. I'll just pretend the next bobble is the end of my piece, and I'll show you how I bind off the bobble. And it's pretty simple. You just do the bobble and then slide that stitch over your last stitch. So anyway, my children are all at the Rainiers baseball game tonight, and I am in a silent, empty house, just me and yarn. I'm getting there, you guys. I can only imagine how boring this is. But I promised a video. So here it is. A few more. Hold tight. Because I want to show you what to do with the third loop or the final, no matter how many loops you do, the final loop before your next bobble, just so you have a visual of that too. Okay, let's see here. Almost. Okay, 3 more stitches, and then I'm going to show you how to join the final loop before your next bobble. It will be a triple needle bind off. Okay, so lefties clockwise, righties counterclockwise. Okay, so this will be, like I just said, a triple needle bind off. So line up your stitches. And then we're going to bind these ones off because it's our final loop before the next bobble. So we knit 2 together with the first 2 stitches on both needles. Then you're going to slide that first stitch over your second stitch. And we're going to do that one more time. Knit those 2 together from each needle, and then slide that stitch over your last stitch there. Now we've got 3 loops and a bobble, and I'm demonstrating with 3 loops. So I'm going to do the bobble next. So now with this stitch, we're going to leave that there, because if you chimed in at the beginning of my video, when I start my bobble, I knit a stitch and then I start my bobble on the second stitch so that I can use that first stitch to slide over it. It secures the bobble so much better. My bobbles don't go anywhere. My camera does apparently, but not my bobbles. Okay, so here is the next bobble. So we've got our final stitch from our triple needle bind off there. We're going to do our bobble right here. So split it open, do a yarn over 3 times. There's 1, 2, 3. So we've got our 7 stitches. We're going to turn our work. We're going to purl, then purl through the back loops. We're going to alternate because those yarn overs, like I said before, look like twisted stitches. So this is aesthetically more pleasing to do it this way. So I purl one through the back loop. This is one of those yarn overs. And then we're going to purl one, purl one through the back loop, purl one, purl one through the back loop, and then purl one. And then this is going to leave that one stitch that was the final stitch from our triple needle bind off of the final I-cord loop. We're going to leave it there. And now we're just going to simply knit across our 7 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to turn our work and we're going to simply purl. Okay, and then we're going to turn our work again and knit across one more time. Okay, so now we're going to bind off all these stitches. Oops. My Hiya sharps. Great for beading. And I'm not adding beads on this video, sorry. It's just on the middle stitch on the I-cord loops. Okay, so there's our bobble. Cute, perfect, sturdy little bobble. And then now we're going to take this other stitch. we're going to slide it over our bobble stitch. Then we're going to knit one more, slide that stitch, our bobble stitch, over that last knitted stitch. Now this becomes our first stitch of our next I-cord loop. So 1, 2, 3. So now you start your next loop. There you have it. So let me see if it looks better laid out flat, you guys. Look at that. It looks good in every color. It's so pretty. Hi, Thea. Melody. You guys, look so perfect. This is the yarn I used for one of the hats I made my mom. It's Malabrigo. It's great. Okay, so there you have it. So I just demonstrated start to finish with 3 loops in between the bobbles. Hi, Emily. Isn't that so pretty? I just showed you guys how to do this. So super simple. It's just detail work, and I happen to love detail work. That's like my favorite thing ever. So there you have it. I-cord, Loopy I-cord bobble biting off. Have a great weekend, you guys. Happy knitting.